Greetings, everybody. This is Ham Radio Perspectives, and I am Quinn, K8QS.
And I am Tom, W89TDD. And, well, Quinn, what we're going to look at today is what do we look for in a new or used rig? And number one, firstly, the one thing I look for is, ease of use. It's not a complicated menu system. I can plug it in, hook up an antenna, and I get comfortable with it right away. And I think for me, that would be my primary interest in looking at either a new or a used radio.
I like that one, Tom, and that's true for me too. I like it to be pretty easy to use, simple. And actually, when you look at the eHam reviews, even if some of the newer rigs, people complain about the menu system. So that's a good one. The second thing to look for in getting a newer used rig, I think, is whether or not it is visually pleasing to you. Now, this is subjective. We admit that, but we don't want a rig that we don't like what it looks like sitting in front of us all the time, like an ugly statue or something. Okay, so think about that a little bit. Don't look just at the specs. Also look at whether or not it's attractive visually to you.
Right. And the third thing, number three, that I would look for is, relevant features for the operator. It has a menu system, but I don't need everything under the sun on that menu system. Some rigs are just loaded with all kinds of features that I will never use. And if I did happen to acquire one of those, most of those features I wouldn't necessarily even turn on. So in combination with ease of use, it's number of features that I would apply for to make it more usable and user friendly.
I like that, Tom. The fourth thing we look for in a new or used rig is a good antenna tuner. Now, of course, it's only the newer rigs that have the antenna tuners. Newers, well, we're old guys. What's new to us, But do you need a separate antenna tuner or not? And if you do, what's that going to set you back versus getting a rig with an antenna tuner in it?
Yeah.
And also, let me suggest, Tom, that not all of these built-in antenna tuners are of the same quality.
No.
So once again, check out the reviews, both those quickie reviews on eHam, but also look up some of the videos of people going through the features and trying out the antenna tuner and seeing how it works. So one of the great things about contemporary rigs is having these antenna tuners built in, but unfortunately they don't all work as well.
Right. And that brings us actually to number 5, Quinn, is looking at decent, like eHam review ratings, a few of the straight YouTube reviews. You got to consider the source sometimes. And discount a few of the extremely negative reviews, or reviews that say that they just got the rig and boy, this thing is heaven on earth. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Look at the midpoint before you make a decision.
Yeah, that is so good, Tom. I sometimes on eHam I see these reviews where they say, I just got the rig yesterday, got it going a little bit. I love this. It's the best rig. Well, they haven't had any time to have any problems with it yet. So that's not the kind of review that you would take seriously. Some guys will go back and add a second review, right? The first one may be negative, and then suddenly they realize that it was a feature that they were misusing. So then they have to go on, if they have any guts, and apologize for it. But other times it's a positive thing, and then they come back and say, but here are some other things to look at. So give yourself a little window there, especially with a new rig. The great thing about eHam reviews with older rigs is that often there is a lot of the reviews. And so you got not just the averages, but you can go down there and say, all right, here's a 3 out of 5. What does this person have to say? And so on. So decent reviews and the ratings. Okay, the sixth thing that we look at getting a new or used rig is the big one, budget, the cost. as we used to say in Chicago, Tom, with all the gangster shoot 'em ups and all, the do-re-mi, baby, the do-re-mi. What is it really going to cost you? Because you can't enjoy something if you feel like you have paid way too much for what it's worth. Okay, or you get something that you're not happy with, and then you have buyer's regret, and you have to get rid of it. This is one of the big reasons that Tom and I are big on buying used gear,
Right.
because the real cost of used gear is the difference between what you pay for it and what you can resell it for. That's the cost.
Right.
So people will say about Elecraft gear, let's say, oh, it's so expensive. In fact, Tom, I just looked up the combo of the K4, the current top transceiver for HF, and the 1500 watt amp. And you can get those two together, Tom, for a measly $15,000 or thereabouts. But if you go to resell those, you are not going to take a big hit. You will take a bigger hit typically on the cheaper Chinese stuff. But in any case, consider what it's actually going to cost you and whether or not it will give you pleasure with what's in it for that amount of money, for that amount of budget. And that helps you explain to your significant other that you haven't made a dumb mistake too. And you know, there are these classic rigs, Tom, out there, like a TS440. I think you have one of those, don't you?
Yeah. I've got a TS430.
Okay, 430, 440. The
thing.
hybrid rigs, the TS520S, or you had a
820S.
820S and all.
Yeah.
Or I loved some of the classic 10 techs like the Omni D Delta. There are a lot of classic rigs out there you can go for that are not that expensive, and that because there's such a community of followers for those rigs. Oh, Drake is another one, some of the older Drake equipment, that you find people that have parts available and will do repair. And so that's another thing to consider as well. So budget, but always take these other things into account. Just don't look at that single price that you're paying.
Right. It's just like buying a new car. You lose 40% of the value as soon as you drive it off the lot.
Unless it's a Lexus.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Number 7. Consider if you're going to be using the rig for portable operation, mobile operation in your car, doing parks on the air, summits on the air, islands on the air. It needs to be compact. It needs to be lightweight. And if that's going to be your prime interest, that's one of the things you're going to look for. Not so much the menus, not so much the power output, but you're going to look for something that's small, compact, light, and can be used easily in a portable operation.
Yeah, and it may not consume too much power too.
Right.
That's another thing. Okay, the 7th thing we look at for getting a newer used rig, I'm sorry, the 8th. The 8th thing we look at in getting a new or used rig is the use of, for CW, continuous wave, Morse code in particular. Now, I bring this up, Tom, because you know that I like Morse code.
Yeah.
I like relatively fast Morse code. And there are an awful lot of rigs, even newer rigs coming out, that are not very good for what we call break-in mode, where you're sending real fast, and as you're sending between the dits and the das, you can actually hear the other party or hear if someone is trying to break into your QSO on CW. So it's fast, but you can hear what's going on. There is then semi-break-in, where if you start to send a DA or a DIT, a relay goes, and then there's a time limit, maybe 2 or 3 seconds before that relay turns off, and you hear receive again. That's semi-break-in. So depending on what you're going to do with CW, see if it's got full break-in or semi-break-in. Maybe it doesn't make any difference to you, but I find even with my IC7300 with the semi-break-in, it's not all that I would like to have compared to an older rig like the Omni Delta I mentioned, my all-time favorite. I bought 5 of those and sold them all and wish I still had them back. we should do a rig on a video on that, Tom. Rigs that we sold off that we wish we didn't. Everybody's got a category for that. So CW is a consideration.
Okay, number 9 in a similar vein, Quinn, is the ease of digital operations to set up and use. But primary function that I really look for when using digital is frequency stability. And that eliminates a lot of the older, say, the hybrid rigs, or even the Omni D, as good as it was, it didn't have the stability of, say, an SDR-based transceiver. My IC7300, stable as a rock. My TS820, as long as I keep my hand on that knob and keep it from drifting too far off frequency, I'm okay. But the frequency band of the digital modes is so narrow that you can't possibly compensate by hand. So for me, something that is stable for digital modes for frequency usage is imperative.
So let me push you a little bit on that, Tom, because you are the expert between the two of us on using the digital modes. What else do you look for in terms of connectivity to connect to your computer, for audio and audio input, output, and all that other stuff? What else would you look for?
Well, look for having an integral sound card on it. I learned too late that the IC7300 does indeed have an integral sound card on it. But I've used a signal link because my other radios didn't have that capability. I'm so used to using the signal link that rather than going through the menu on the IC7300, I continue to use the signal link.
Yeah, that signal link is a great little product.
Right. So to me, at this point, an ease of setup using digital modes would be very helpful. Okay, if I have to go through a lot of menu on it, not so much. But I have not, in all honesty, I haven't tried the sound card on the IC7300. Hey, it may be great, but like I say, I'm so used to using the signal link that it just comes naturally to me.
Okay, and the signal link will work with any rig, right, as long as you've got the stability, the frequency stability.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, and I see those signal links going used for not that much, and see a lot of them at Hamfest too, that people who upgraded their equipment and didn't need them anymore. Okay, so the 10th thing that we look for in getting a new or used rig is the aftermarket value for the rig, the aftermarket value. Now, this is related to price, of course, the value in price, but this is also related to the cost of keeping it up, keeping it going, upgrading it, making sure that parts are available. So all of this is shifting around all the time. So a new IC7300 comes out, the Mark II, and suddenly you start seeing the IC7300s, like you and I have, going down $250 or so in value. Perfect time to buy one. I mean, if you can pick up an IC7300 used for $700 right now, it's a deal. Go for it. I saw one guy at Hamfest selling one for $650, and he sold it right at the beginning of the Hamfest. That was really a good deal. So think about that, and now there's, of course, a trade value as well, but this is very hard to get your finger on. If you're a newer ham and you're wondering about these Hamfests, and they call them swap meets, and you go there with your equipment and you trade it for something else, this is a whole art form, because you have to have a sense of what the equipment is worth that you're going after, what your equipment is worth, and then you have to negotiate in the middle there somewhere. And it's done all the time, but it's a little bit complicated. So this aftermarket cost value is something to keep in mind. Number 10. So these are the 10 things that Tom and I most look at when it comes to getting new or used equipment. It's true of the VHF, UHF equipment, and as well as the HF. But here, Tom, I want to make one final caveat and get your opinion on it. I don't have any clear sense of how the values change of all of these doggone handy talkies, these HTs out there for UHF, VHF, DMR, and so forth, and how low the prices are, some of the new equipment, and what they should sell for used. I'm lost in that market, and I would have to have somebody like you help me. What's your view of that?
Well, the cost of those HTs is so cheap right now that I can't see a real aftermarket existing for it. I mean, after you've used it for a year or two, and you want to upgrade, basically just hand it off to a club to let them hand off to a new member, a new technician license or something, because the initial cost of those things is so doggone cheap. It's almost not worth your time trying to sell it.
Yeah, I scratched my head. At the Hamfest I was recently at, I walked around and saw a number of these, quite a few of these Chinese units out there for sale, about what we paid for a CB walkie-talkie in 1969. Right. Just absolutely amazing. So thanks, everybody. This is Ham Radio Perspectives. My name's Quinn. I'm K8QS.
I'm Tom, WA9TDD.
And, we really appreciate you tuning in, subscribing. Hit that little bell up to the right up there so you'll get a dinger when a new video comes out. We've been doing a lot of videos lately. We're trying to find how we can best serve people. So any feedback you give us is great. We're not on here for an ego trip. Believe me, if we were on here for an ego trip, we wouldn't be making so many dumb mistakes and having people send us notes like a recent one we did where I was confusing the word amplifier and antenna tuner or something like that all the time. Oh boy, we are amateur operators. We're amateur YouTubers, and we're having fun, and we know we're serving some of you. So let us know that and come back. Tom, I got to say, you're a ball to do these with, buddy.
Well, you're a bunch of laughs too, Quinn.
Yeah. Okay. See everybody. 7-3.